What's up, everybody? This is Alexander King, and today we're going to be talking about Even in Arcadia. I don't know if you want to call it a review or just, it's just my thoughts about the record. I've been set with it a little bit more, of course, compared to the Discovery Metal series that we did, where it was just my first listening experience, where we just sat through and went through the whole thing. Of course, I will be referencing some points that stood out to me during the first listen. If you haven't watched that video and you're curious to check it out, and even if you just want to, as I always say in that series, not necessarily a reaction video, but if you just want to slow down and listen to music together, I will leave the links, and I'm sure you will find it in the recommended videos and stuff like that. But yeah, I have to say, first spoiler, I guess, for this video is I really like this album, which is not so much of a spoiler if you've watched the other video in the Discovery Metal series. Because you can see my reaction to the whole record as soon as it came out. At the first listening experience, I found it a very enjoyable record straight away. As I said during that video, this is probably the most accessible record from Sleep Token, at least when we're talking about the full lengths. There are a few things that I do want to address right away, because these are critiques that I've heard a lot of people complaining about when it comes to this record, which just make me think that maybe and there is nothing wrong with that, but I think that most of these people discovered the band, as I did, to be completely honest, with Take Me Back to Eden, with the latest record. Maybe listen to the singles and the biggest songs from the previous records, but they didn't necessarily grow familiar and accustomed with their whole catalog with Sleep Token. And that was something that was already pretty evident to me when Damocles came out, the third single, because I heard a lot of people saying yeah, but this is kind of a standard piano ballad. The guitars come in, but it's like a rock piano ballad. This is not really like Sleep Token. And I was like, what do you mean it's not like Sleep Token? Like, half of the first two records this literally it's there are a lot of songs like that in their catalog, even just more stripped down and just piano and voice, and this is kind of a feeling that I got from a lot of people that shared their thoughts about this record. It's a very Sleep Token record to me. It sounds like an evolution of Sleep Token, as they've always did. Like, if you go through their record and their discography step by step, even if you start from their early days EPs, which, by the way, I think are massively underrated. Like, not a lot of people talk about them, but there are some amazing songs in them. You can see that there is an evolution musically. As I said, this is the most accessible one, but it doesn't mean that it's straightforward or necessarily simple. If anything, actually, I think that they play around with the song structures a little bit more in this record than they did in Take Me Back to Eden, even though it's a little bit, how can I say this? If you take Me Back to Eden as a record, there are a lot of songs that follow exactly the same song structure, which works extremely well. And I do think that some of my favorite songs on this record also follow that structure. It's like the longer songs, a little bit more complex with the build-ups and the heavy breakdowns, and then going back. If you compare that in Take Me Back to Eden, they usually started very slow. Then they went into a trap beat, hip-hop inspired, or R&B. And then at the end, it just builds and builds and builds, and then it just explodes with these heavy, big guitars. And then in some of the songs, it goes even heavier and just get the crazy metal breakdown. If you think, for example, the most prominent example in that case is the title track, Take Me Back to Eden, which to this day, it's probably still my favorite song from Sleep Token. I think it's amazing. And that song structure is followed throughout a lot of songs in the record. And I have to say, the thing that I've always said about Sleep Token, if you check some of the reactions that I did for some of the songs in that record, it's the space. So when Sleep Token takes space, and they leave a lot of space in their songs to let the genre let's say that they make the transitions from one genre to the other less harsh and less drastic, so it feels like more cohesive overall, which is the reason why, for example, a song like Take Me Back to Eden really works. Like if you take Me Back to Eden and you like compress it to a 4-minute song, I don't think that it would work as well, and I think that all of you will agree with that. Which leads me to Even in Arcadia. Now, if you, for example, take songs like Look to Windward and Infinite Bats, those are two of the standout tracks to me on the record. You will notice that they are probably the longest songs on the record. And this is because the transitions and all the pieces fit together very well. And again, for my personal taste, also because of this space that they leave within the song. That was the issue that I had with Caramel when it first came out as the first single. Like it felt a little bit forced. The transition into the crazy part, because it's much shorter, like it's almost half the length. So it's you have less time to develop that switch. So when it just clicks, it's a little bit more harsh, like you're not really completely settled in when that kicks in. Caramel grew to become like one of my favorite songs on the record as well. And that's also because of the lyrical aspect. Like when you check the lyrics, what he's saying, like I thought I was better, but maybe I didn't, and then it hits. It makes a lot of sense. Like it's the music that matches the feeling in what you're writing, I think. So it's like a more upbeat, all this reggaeton beat that goes on, and it's very nice and kind of happy, just danceable, and then it just hits you. Like I thought I was getting better, like I thought I was better, but maybe I didn't, and then just like very heavy break, almost like black metal blast beats, and it goes into madness. So that really works once I check the lyrics. So you go like, oh yeah, actually if you pay attention to that, that makes a lot more sense. And then of course it grows with repeated listens. As I said, Look to Windward, Caramel and Infinite Bats are great songs, but I have to say Emergence and Damocles as well. Like I think that these are my top 5 songs on the record. Very closely we have Gethsemane. I still don't know if that's the right way to pronounce that, but Gethsemane with that like the math rock influence and post rock, it's so good. And also the development of the song, it's also a slightly longer song. Overall, like it's an extremely solid record, and I will go briefly and just share a thought about every single song on the record. But I have to say, there are 3 songs that I'm not crazy about, which are Past Self, Dangerous, and Provider. So these 3 songs still haven't really grown on me that much. Especially, I feel like Provider, where it's located in the record, it like I really like the second half. I love the chorus. It has like almost this post-rock vibe, like a alternative rock, alternative metal band from the 2010s vibe, which I really enjoy. It's very good, but I don't like, if I listen to the first half of the song and then listen to that, it almost feels like 2 different separate tracks. And I know that they bring that back and everything, but still, like I probably listened to the record 6-7 times by now. There is something that just doesn't click with me yet. It's very different, of course, the conversation about Past Self. Past Self, it's a much shorter song. It's catchy, straight to the point. I've heard a lot of people say that it's kind of boring. I don't agree. Like I think it's a nice song. It's just not the type of song that I normally would gravitate towards. But I see that working also in the economy of the record. And also, like, as I said during the, if you want to call it reaction, but as I said during the listening of the record, like the first listen, it's also good to have some songs that are just straight up one genre, you know, like as they did in the older days. You don't necessarily need to force like crazy breakdowns into things. So I think that that's perfectly fine. And then there is Dangerous, which it just doesn't click. So far it really doesn't click with me. There are some very interesting beats, like the very hip-hop beat that comes in, but overall in these 3 songs, like it's there is a difference even in the R&B influence that's spread throughout the record. I think that it works a little bit less in songs like Dangerous and Provider, whereas for example in Gethsemane, in the second half, it's amazing. and it works so well also as a transition, as a development of the math rock that you get in the first half. But those are literally like 3 songs. I wouldn't say that there are skips. I wouldn't say that they're fillers, but they haven't hit me as much. And that's probably the one thing that I enjoy a bit less about this record compared, for example, to Take Me Back to Eden, is that there are these songs that kind of get me out of the listening experience a little bit. Just it doesn't flow as well because of these. Whereas Take Me Back to Eden was an extremely solid record. This is a little bit more like Sound Downing, for example, where there are some songs that I'm not like overly crazy about, and then there are some very high highs. So it's a bit less solid as an overall. I hope that it makes sense what I'm saying. But if I look at the highs, this record is absolutely fantastic. You have a song like Look to Windward as an opener, it's incredible. As I said, they play around with the song structure, so you have the heavy breakdown, but then they go back and they bring like that trap beat. Fantastic song, honestly. Like, I loved it. At the first listen, it was already very good, like to build up the record. I also always think that the first record that you listen to in a brand new record always gets a little bit like not forgotten, but while you're going through it, it's almost like you get the hype. Especially in a case like this where it was literally my most anticipated record of the year. So it's like you listen to the whole thing, what's happening? Okay, I need to process all of this, and then you get by the end of it, and it's just like a blur. It's a song that I enjoyed, as I said, because it builds the momentum for the whole record and builds a very nice structure that leads into Emergence. But it grew so much on me, like listen after listen, and it became, as I said, one of my favorites on the record. Emergence, not much that I need to say about it. Like, we've heard this already. Like, I listened to this 20,000 times already. It's a great song. It was the leading single. It's a perfect leading single with the addition of the sax and everything. It's a fantastic song, honestly. I don't actually remember if I did a reaction video for that, but even if you want to look, my first reaction to that, I think it's out there on the internet, on this crazy thing called the internet. But yeah, I love the song. Past Self, as I said, it's a solid track, very short, which doesn't do a lot of damage, even if I am not necessarily a fan of the genre in itself, of the song. Dangerous, again, I think that it's probably my least favorite so far. So it's so-so, and I think that it also suffered the fact that it comes after Past Self, which I'm not mad about. So it's like, as I said, it kind of takes me out of the record because of that reason. Then we move into Caramel. As I said, I had my issues with it at first. When it first came out as a single, I was like a bit confused. Give it time, look at the lyrics, it all makes sense, and it clicks. Also the transition, it feels way less harsh when you look at the lyrics, as I said. Even in Arcadia, honestly, I actually forgot to mention this in my top songs. This is in the top songs. It's an incredible song. I actually think that this might be in the top 3 in the record. It's so beautiful. Like, there is something absolutely magical and enchanting about the piano chords that he plays. It's a simple song structure, like it follows a somewhat traditional thing. It's not overly long, it's not overly complicated. It's more about the melody, the lyrics, and those chords that it just take you away to a different dimension. Honestly, it's one of the most beautiful, I think, just piano-led songs that Sleep Token did. And there are a few, because like you can really tell that he writes most of the songs on the piano. It just works so well with his voice, the vocal harmonies, amazing. Provider, as I said, the issue with this one, it's more like that split in between, so it kind of feels like 2 different songs to me. Doesn't really grow as the others do, so far at least. Never say never. Damocles was my favorite single when it came out, and it's an amazing song. It's still my favorite, I think, on the record. Maybe together with Infinite Bats, but it's an incredible song. It's so beautiful again, and there is an enchanting quality to it, as Sleep Token have. There are some influences, as I said during my first listen, and then I kind of confirmed that, like, I think that there are spread throughout the record, but also in this song, some influences from like those post-rock bands like Radiohead, and there is something of that which I hadn't heard as much in the last record. There was much more of this in the earlier records. I think that they were much more influenced by Radiohead, for example, in the EPs and on Sundowning. It's a beautiful song, honestly, still probably my favorite on the record. Gets a Main, as I said, it has the transition that works brilliantly from the math rock at the beginning, and then you get into this more R&B led thing with the guitars that come in. Gorgeous song. It can sound pretty complex at the first listen, as do most songs, to be honest, when you think about Sleep Token. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. And it has that difference, like the key difference compared to, for example, Provider, of really managing to pull off the transition. I really loved it at the first listen, but this is another grower, just like Look to Windward, where with repeated listens, it grew crazy. It's so good. Fantastic song. And then you have Infinite Bats, which, my God, wow. So many things to say about this song. Things that, of course, were very evident even at the first listen. You have that very Pink Floyd reminiscent break at the middle, which is so gorgeous. It kind of makes me wish that Sleep Token did like a progressive rock record. Just the guitar tone and the chord progression, it's so reminiscent of those 70s Pink Floyd records. Beautiful. And I guess that it's not a coincidence that this is one of my favorite songs on the record, because you can say that this is a little bit of the Take Me Back to Eden, like the title track from that record when it comes to the emotional charge. Even the placement on the record towards the end, very long song with this big development and a very heavy break at the end. So yeah, it's as I said, Take Me Back to Eden is one of my favorite songs from Sleep Token, if not my favorite one, and Infinite Bats just goes very strongly towards that direction, so no surprise that I really enjoyed it. And it kind of leads me also to another point that I want to make, and it's something that I said also briefly as a hot take basically at the end of the reaction. It's despite being one of the most accessible records from Sleep Token, with not as many heavy parts as Take Me Back to Eden, the heavy parts that we find here, both in Caramel, for example, even I kind of in Look to Windward, even it's a little bit shorter, but in Infinite Bats especially, are probably the heaviest breaks and the heaviest sections ever that Sleep Token featured in one of their songs. So you still get like a taste of it. It's not as prominent throughout the whole record. It's dosed a little bit, in a more careful way, and again, it's more similar to the earlier works, so not necessarily to Take Me Back to Eden. Which again leads me to another point, which it's going to be kind of a divisive record, I think, towards the fan base. So the people that have been long-term Sleep Token fans, or not even necessarily long-term Sleep Token fans, but even the newer fans that went in and discovered the old records and became, fans of the whole discography, I think are gonna really love this record, because it has some elements from those early days, plus of course the heaviness that they developed and they brought in, for example, in songs like Vor on Take Me Back to Eden. Fans that have only been listening to Take Me Back to Eden mostly and are not as familiar with their whole catalog, I think are going to be a little bit disoriented by a lot of songs on this record. Despite the fact that the formula is still kind of similar, as I said, this is kind of an evolution for the band. So they didn't do exactly the same thing. And I think that a lot of people were expecting them to do just that. Because as I said in that video, this is a very crucial point in their career, because they're making that huge step towards arenas and stadiums and becoming kind of mainstream. Despite, how crazy that sounds, considering the band aesthetic and the band music and the kind of genres that they blend together, to think that a band like that is on top of the Billboard charts, it's kind of crazy. I'm very happy to believe in a time where that happens, don't get me wrong, but you know, if a lot of people, I think that we're expecting them to kind of play it safe. It's like you find the formula that really works, that make you jump like crazy, and then you stick with it. But they evolved once again, which is something I love about this band. It's like you can never guess what is going to come next, which is what I think most of the great bands do, at least the ones that are a bit more interesting. Nothing wrong with being an AC/DC or something like that, but you know, it's it becomes kind of formulaic at a certain stage. It's still enjoyable, but it's not the same thing. And then it's difficult to top yourself. Whereas with a band like this, you never know. Like maybe the next record, it's going to be their best yet, because you literally don't know what they're going for. The last point that I want to make is this feels like a much more Vessel-centered record compared to the whole band. Of course, one of the main stars and one of the reasons why this band exploded, I think it's the drumming from Chu. All the videos and all the breakdowns, luckily enough, like between Drumeo and other drum channels and things like that, I think that there has been a surge in popularity when it comes to drum playing. And Chu became kind of an incarnation of this new generation of drumming. He's fantastic. Like, he does things that I've never heard other people do within this genre of music, blending in very different influences. And it's very evident also if you listen to the interview that he did on Drumeo, where he's kind of explaining his influences and how he puts them in his beats and his feels. It's crazy. That guy is a monster on the drums. It's a little bit less present, but it's a kind of what I said about the heavy parts. So there are less heavy parts, but the heavy parts that we get are the craziest ones. It's kind of the same with the drumming. It's like you get less feels and less drumming heavy songs, but the parts where the drums are prevalent and dominant in the songs are insane. It's some of the most complex drum work that I've heard from Chu. Overall, it's absolutely crazy. Also some techniques that I don't think that he had used in the past. So it's it kind of like goes back in a way, but then over delivers on the other side. And of course, it's always being purposeful to the song, which is the sign of a great musician. So I don't agree on the point that the drums are kind of forgotten on this record. Absolutely not. They're very functional for the type of songs that they're going for. But as I said, the star of everything, I think it's the vocal delivery and the vocal performance by Vessel. And you can see that also in a much stronger R&B presence and influence on the song, on the record. A lot of songs follow the structure, and songs like that, on a production standpoint, like even if I have to produce an R&B song, it's kind of minimal. You don't want crazy things happening on the background because you want the voice to shine. Of course, supported, as I said, by the production, which is fantastic, as you would expect. And the play between his voice and all the vocal harmonies that are still like sung by him in most cases, unless they use background singers, which have incredibly similar vocal tones, but I'm pretty sure that he's singing almost everything that you hear on the record. So he feels like the star of the show. Even like I was just now on Spotify, and you see like the banner of the artist, it's just him. It's not the whole band as it was before. This is not to say that the band is forgotten, and it's kind of ironic also if you think about the fact that we don't know who the people are, so it's not an ego thing for sure. It's just kind of the direction of the music in this record. As I said, kind of more similar to early days Sleep Token. So yeah, guys, I mean, what else can I say? This is already becoming a long video, and I could keep on blabbing about Sleep Token and this record for way longer and just get into gritty details about each song. But I don't necessarily want to do that. It's I'm sure that also like in 6-7 more listens, my opinions might change about the songs. But this was just an overall like recap of my thoughts. Some of you asked me in the comment section of the reaction to just share a more updated take, especially when you're dealing with music that is not as straightforward and that just blends genres that are not necessarily commonly blended together. I think that it's important to give music time to grow on you and see how your perception of the whole record changes. So those were my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Of course, a lot of you already let me know in the reaction video, like your overall thought on the record. Let me know if your thoughts change, like your standout tracks, maybe your top 3. That's always fun, even though it's so difficult to pick just 3 songs of this record, because as I said, the highs are so high. I'm pretty sure on the bottom 3, but the top 7, then it's kind of messy. It's very difficult to just pick an order out. So yeah, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this. If you also, let me know, like, if you enjoyed this format, we can do more of these kind of reviews things together for some of the other records that we listen to together. And let me know, as always, what I should be checking out next in terms of reactions and discovering genres and those series. And as always, if you're also curious about my music, there are all the links down below. Sleep Token are an influence on the things that I do, not necessarily in a way that you would expect musically, but more in an inspiration type thing where you just try to blend different things that aren't necessarily meant to be together, let's say, on a musical standpoint. So guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you at the next one.